Hello everyone, Chris here, and this is going to be a tutorial on a fast castle. This is going to be a very basic fast castle. It's not going to be anything spectacular. It's not going to be anything that's a tight build order. It's going to be something that's pretty simple that most people should be able to follow. If you're a beginner, it's definitely a good start for you. If you don't know how to fast castle, it's more aimed at you. It's not really aimed at people who already know how to fast castle to really improve. This video is going to have a lot of explaining in it. It's going to be quite long and a lot of talking, so if you're not into that, it might not be the video for you. It's going to be a very simple build order. I've just made it as simple as possible where you have at least a lot of resources for all the different options you could go. It's a generic build order, but once you get the basics of fast castling down, then you can start moving on to more advanced things. So we're not going to be using hotkeys. You might see me use one or two here and then out of habit, but we're also going to use maybe one or two control groups. Control groups, if you don't know, is where you assign a unit to a number. Such as your scout, you could press Control 1 when you've got him selected. Then whenever you press 1, it'll automatically select him again. So, the basics of a Dark Age is, basics of Fast Castle is in the Dark Age, you get all your economy. And you essentially skip Feudal Age. It's quite effective because the main purpose is that you have a lot of villagers that are working while you're aging up. And that's where you get a lot of your resources. So you definitely get a bit of early economy boost from this. By the time you get to Castle Age, that's when you can do whatever you want. You know, start booming, making knights, lots of different things you could do there. So, if you don't know about fast castling already, as I said, you have to skip Feudal Age. You essentially make 2 villagers in Feudal Age because you need a bit of time to make 2 buildings to age up, because, you know, to age up requires a couple of buildings from that age. When it comes to arena, commonly you'll see things like market and a blacksmith. You could also do a blacksmith plus a stable, a blacksmith plus an archery range, but those buildings require barracks first. We're not going to be doing that here since it costs a bit more wood. I'll explain as we go what you could do to really get the wood to build those buildings instead. So yeah, we need the time to build those 2 buildings. That's why there's a +2 in the builder. For example, 28 + 2 means we'll have 28 population in the Dark Age when we click up to Feudal. And the +2 is the 2 villagers we make in Feudal. And, you know, you might as well be making villagers rather than not making villagers in the time that it takes you to build the buildings. Those villagers can really go to wherever you want. So, there's not all that much left to talk about rather than to just jump straight into the game. If you see any concepts in this video you haven't seen before, then you're free to rewatch. And on screen right now, you'll currently see the current builder. This is what we're going to be following. It's also going to be in the description, a text-based version, so you copy and paste it if you want. But yeah, it's basically just the directions of where your villagers are going to be going. So, to stop this being a very long video, let's get to our start. We're playing as the Vietnamese because they don't really have any economy bonus at all. Goths kill boars a bit faster, so you don't really need loom as much. There's different aspects to Saracens as well, they also get cheaper markets. Vietnamese is probably one of the best. So we're going to start this one. We're going to start by building 2 houses. 2 villagers build 1 house and 1 villager builds another house. And we're also going to start scouting. We're going to make sure we get our starting sheep as soon as possible. Also recap, Arena, Black Forest, on some occasions you do get extra boars in Black Forest. And Arabia, you'll end up with 2 main boars. You also have 3 or 4 deer, but we're not going to be interested in deer in this video. You also have 8 sheep in total, 4 to start with, and 2 separate groups of 2 in separate places. So let's get into this. I don't know why my scout is already moving in that direction. We're also going to queue up all 4 villagers right away and get sheep under the TC. So that control group thing I was saying, press Control 1 to select him. Now whenever we press 1, it will automatically go to him. So you go and scout wherever. When our villagers have built the houses, we're going to send them to the sheep as well as the new villagers that come out. We're interested in having 6 on sheep. Got some sheep there. And some sheep there. You generally want to look outside as soon as possible after you got your first 3 sheep. First 4 sheep, sorry. You could also do things like hold shift and right click in places with your sheep. And then just right click on the final place to send them there at the end. That way you could do a little bit of scouting around your base with your sheep. Don't forget to press 1 to jump to your scout. So now we have our 6 villagers on sheep. Now we want to add 4 to wood. Make sure we keep making villagers, that's the secret to the build. We also want to make sure we always have at least 1 alive sheep under TC at all times. Let's build a lumber camp. It's probably not the most ideal location because, you know, we can't quite fit villagers around there too fine. But, you know, that's what we're going to go with. My throat's not doing so good today. So there's various things you can do to optimize things as you go. For example, something we could do is to manually, whenever a sheep runs out, grab these villagers and send them to the next sheep immediately. That way they don't waste time running around each other looking for the next sheep to kill. We're not doing that in this build though because it's pretty micro intensive for a beginner and it's something you don't want to really be worrying about. For example, just directly sending them like that. So next villager we want to get the boar after we got our 4 on wood. We also want to control group this villager, that way you could at least keep track of it so you don't lose it to a boar. So after we have our villager getting the boar, the next one we'll go mill the berries and build a house on the way. G, by default, is the go-to garrison hotkey, where your villager will automatically select your villager, press G, and then left click your TC to garrison your villager in. That is the default. So we want 3 on berries. You will have to force drop from your board, so select your villagers and right click your TC. Make sure you don't accidentally click one of these trees because then they drop off the resources and you'll never see them again. So we got a 3 on berries, we want to get an next boar, set our rally point onto the boar. And let's say we need loom or something, maybe this boar is far away or outside. So we're going to get loom now just because it's a beginner builder that I'm going to expect you to need it at some point. Make sure to get your 2 shots. So now we want to add 1 more to berries because we need 4 on berries. And this next villager is really important because it's going to have to build 2 houses. Those are some of the AI sheep. So, on the way to the berries, you could also just use any villager at this point to build 2 houses, but that's what we need. Make sure all our villagers are working. Always use the idle vill hotkey if you have one set up. Otherwise, use the button down here. If you want to do things scour your enemy, you might not be using your scout the best you can at this point, so... Anyway, after we have our 4 on berries, we add 2 more to TC food. This villager and the last villager. At this point we want to make 2 farms. This tree's in the way, so we could chop that one down. We also want to start making a second lumber camp now. At 19 pop, we want to make 4 villagers to make a second lumber camp. 5, sorry. Let's leave in front of the gate, see if they notice them. You could also control group your town centre if you want to get to it fast. But I would recommend using the hotkey of, by default it's H, I find it quite comfortable, I use that with myself. Make sure to keep using the idle villager hotkey as much as possible. So at 19 pop, we want to make 2 farms. And over the course, we want to just add some more farms. We want to end up with between 6 to 8. We might go for 7. We'll see how it goes. But after the first two, I like to add farms as much as I can afford them until we get to 6. You'd also make sure your villagers are working efficiently if you feel like you've got a lot of time, like you're not paying too much attention to your scouting maybe. So just make sure, for example, they're spread out. Like instead of having 5 villagers on this side of the lumber camp, we're gonna have, 2 here, 3 here, a bit more even out. After we have that, we want to add 1 more to our TC food. So next we want to add 3 villagers to gold because we got loom. This is a particularly nasty mining camp spot. I would put it there and then just hope we mine through that one really quickly. Make sure when you're building farms you don't take away the 100 wood you need to build your mining camp. Make sure your villager's not carrying any resources when you send them to chop trees. It's fine if you build farms because they'll drop off whatever they're holding no matter what it is whenever they build a farm. But when you go to chop another resource like trees. So now we're going to click up. Now we have quite a lot of free time to think about our options, make sure all your villagers are working. Because I decided to do something a bit fancy and drop a villager in here just to make sure we could get rid of this really quickly. Then she was idle, so we're gonna go with 8 farms. If you have 9 on wood in your Dark Age, even 8 on wood, then it's fine to have 0 wood when you click up, and then you'll still have enough to make your market and blacksmith when you reach feudal age. If you have 3 villagers like this, send them to a straggler tree. If you see me doing a lot of things like paying attention, that's just me trying to not being able to shake bad habits of trying to avoid using a lot of micro. So for this, our feudal age villagers, we're going to put 2 on gold, and that just gives us a lot of all resources. We'll be up with a lot of food, a lot of wood, a lot of gold. It's a very generic FC we're doing here. It's not supposed to be specific to anything. If you wanted to boom though, like add an extra 2 town centers when you're in Castle Age, then you can send the next 2 villagers in feudal age to wood. So we have 3 spare villagers here, so we're going to use these. You can use any villagers. Queue up 2 villagers. We're going to build a market with 1 and a blacksmith with another. I'll each spread my villagers out. We said gold, didn't we? So if you were pushing deer, for example, let's say you wanted to go knights in Castle Age, you could actually, instead of using a market is a good beginning, but instead of using a market, you could actually make a blacksmith as you go up to feudal age. And then you can make a stable when you hit feudal age instead of a market. So now we want to click up to Castle Age. Now we've got our 2 buildings. These villagers can really go do whatever. We want to drop off all the wood they're carrying. First thing we want to do is get double bit axe though when we click up to Castle Age. And as soon as we can, horse collar is definitely useful. So this is essentially a fast castle builder. You could go into anything you want. As I said, if you really want to go knights, you could just build a blacksmith now. Grab a couple of any villagers really. As soon as we get the barracks up, then we could build 2 stables and then go knights. Or we could add 2 town centers when we get to Castle Age, which is probably a bit more common to be honest. Booming is quite a good thing these days on Arena, you can get away with booming. Knights, not so much. But maybe you're playing something like Black Forest. And on Black Forest you could always have someone open an area for you to go in with your knights. For knights, I would also suggest getting the gold mining upgrade, just because it becomes worth it after very few amounts of villagers. The one thing you don't want to really forget is to make houses. When you get close to it, you definitely want to start making your houses. And because we're going to knights, we could always get a +1 upgrade, but for double stable, you know, we don't want to get the upgrade right away, but that's getting a bit too into it. We killed their scout. Anyway, don't forget to keep making villagers. You can do whatever at this point, but this is just the bare bones FC. If you don't know how to fast castle, hopefully you do now, and you know, even if you're looking for something a bit more specific of what to go into, then this is definitely a good start, and there's a lot of different things you can learn over time through a lot of playing. There's going to be other builder videos on this channel. I'll try and cover as much as possible, but this is just a very basic fast castle tutorial that hopefully anyone can follow. As I said, I gear towards arena, but it could work on other maps, Black Forest, Arabia Pocket, you know, different situations you could definitely use it in. There are other build order videos on this YouTube channel if you want to check them out. There's currently a 27+2 3TC boom as sort of the next step above this one. Is a generic build order, is quite basic, but it's definitely directly geared towards 3TC booming guide. And also, if you do get quite good at the game eventually, there's a 26+2, which is a 3TC boom for a 1v1 situation where you can get a monastery up very, very quickly and start taking relics and 3TC boom behind. But that's quite a bit more advanced. Hopefully, if you ever get to that point, we'll meet in the game. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. There'll be more videos on this channel definitely though, so stay tuned for those. And thanks everyone for watching. Just to add as a side note, as I usually forget to cover this, as you can see from our stats, ignore the AI stats because I just had it set to an easy mode so it wouldn't bother of us while we're trying to do a build order. But the food collected and wood collected and gold collected, it's actually quite a lot of resources. You've got a lot of basically everything to do a lot of things with this build order. Feudal age, as you see, 12 minutes 50, and like slightly above 3 minutes later, 3.5 minutes later, we hit castle age. That's about right. 1626 is not that bad. Each villager you create, and every time you get a loom, it's going to cost you 25 seconds. For this build order, a 28+2 without loom, we're looking at a 1550 castle time. With loom, we're looking at 1615. So 11 seconds of idle time. That's just taking it casually. That's not using hotkeys. Those are the little mistakes I've been making. That is perfectly fine. Like, I make that much idle time and just random mistakes in the casual games I play from time to time. I don't. You're not supposed to get it perfect every time, and yeah, you're supposed to sit and enjoy the game. So just have a somewhat good castle time. If you're in the 16-minute range, you're generally doing quite good. Faster than that, you're doing exceptionally good if it's a 28+2. You don't have to get loom. If you don't get loom, you only send 2 villagers to gold in Dark Age, so you've got a free villager to do whatever you want. If you don't want to go gold units, then you can send it to wood or food, depending on what you want to do. Wood will help you boom though. And of course, villager high of 29. It could be higher at this point if you only went to feudal age, of course, because you don't spend the time researching castle age, so your town center is not making it. But it is very important to make sure that at no point your town center is idle, which is doing nothing. Make sure it's always either creating villagers or researching something. So I just wanted to add this little clip because I'd forgotten to mention that one. There's also going to be, there is floating around an image somewhere of perfect times for build orders, like the pops you go up and all that kind of stuff. I will either link or add it to my description of this video, so if you want to see that, you can check it out there.